I grew up as the kid who read the instructions on the Lego box before opening the plastic. Ethan was the kid who built a spaceship out of a hairdryer and a shoelace, then convinced everyone it could fly. We were close in that way where you share a language but not a pace. Our parents quietly decided that Ethan should be cushioned from consequences because that's just how he is, and I should be told to breathe and be flexible. It calcified into a pattern. When Maya and I got together, I thought we were a perfect friction fit. I make lists, she makes people feel seen. She's the person who remembers your coffee order and your middle name, who can turn a crowded room into a soft chair. She and Ethan also clicked immediately. Same laugh, same volume, same, "Come on, it's not that serious." It never bothered me. Family is messy. Love is generous. Then Ethan and Nora, his ex, separated. He moved into a small apartment across town and started appearing everywhere. At our place for laundry because the building's machines were always broken. At dinners where he didn't ask, just arrived with beer, in my wife's messages and then her calendar. At first, Maya was the helper. Checking on him, dropping off soup, staying on the phone late to talk him down so he doesn't text Nora something dumb. I didn't love it, but I got it. Divorce is a crater. The shift was gradual. Maya started wearing Ethan's hoodie around the house because it smells like his cologne and it's comforting. She showed him a playlist she'd made for nights when the apartment feels loud. They started inside jokes I wasn't in on. I'd say something like, "Do you two want tea?" And they'd snort at a reference and say, "You had to be there." Small boundaries dissolved. Maya turned her phone over when sitting beside me, which she'd never done. If Ethan called while we were watching a show, she picked up and went into the kitchen. In the mornings, I'd see a new call log nestled under our alarm app like a passenger on a bus. I asked once, like, "Everything okay with Ethan?" She rolled her eyes. "He's not great. Don't make it about you." I'm not a yeller. When something hurts, I label it so I can hold it without bleeding. I started a folder on my laptop called Evidence Index, because that's how I calm down. No detective fantasy, just a place to put things so I don't argue from fog. I made notes in normal words. Amaya added recurring gym blocks on her calendar. Historically goes in the mornings, now going evenings. Amaya's Find My disappears around the same windows and reappears near our street later. A carrier bill shows clusters of late-night calls to Ethan's number, longer than her usual check-ins. A shared family album adds a live photo of a coffee. Audio catches Ethan's laugh. Reflection in a door shows his apartment's hallway art. Rewards portal. My points used for a weekend hotel companion booking. Initials match Ethan's. Doorbell log. Maya arriving home on weekends I was out of town. Timestamps line up with Ethan's location toggles going dark and then home. None of that is a closing argument. It's a pattern. I wanted her to tell me a story that made sense inside our marriage. I started soft. "Hey, can we talk about how much you're carrying for Ethan?" She said, "If you had any empathy, you'd be helping him too." I said I wanted to help without replacing his therapist. She said I was jealous. I said I was worried. She said I was paranoid. The words bounced in a triangle until they lost meaning. I asked Ethan for lunch. I told him I was proud he wasn't drunk texting Nora, that using us as a call a friend is better than using strangers, and that I need my wife to be my wife. He did the golden child thing, made sincere eye contact and said, "You're right, man. I'm leaning too hard." Then he ordered dessert and told me a story about a client who drove a golf cart into a fountain. Later that night, he FaceTimed Maya for an hour while I washed dishes. Lydia's position was predictable. She told me, with voice like warm milk, that Maya is being a blessing to this family, and that I should be grateful to have a wife who cares. When I said I felt like a third wheel in my own living room, she said, "You always did need a lot of attention." When I asked her to tell Ethan to set boundaries, she said, "He's fragile." I said, "So am I." She said, "You're strong. I'm not a martyr. I don't want to write a 1,000-word novel to convince someone to treat me like a partner." I did 2 practical things. I separated our spending for a while, no speeches, just let's track our own stuff for a bit, budgeting experiment. and I got a full panel of health tests because my brain is both worst case and thorough. I also told Maya, calmly, that I need to feel like our home is ours, not a triage station. She accused me of overreacting and said something so slippery it stuck. "You're jealous of the closeness." I said, "I'm not jealous of closeness. I'm asking who it belongs to." She said, "You sound like a spreadsheet." I said, "Spreadsheets keep bridges from falling." Nora, my brother's ex, texted me out of the blue. We were never close, but we were cordial. She said, "I don't want to be in your marriage, but I think there's overlap." She sent a screen of Ethan's messages from the period before their divorce that read like drafts of the ones he sends Maya now. "Late night, can't sleep. The you understand me lines. The will always be connected crumbs." She said the quiet part that cracked me. "He needs a woman to hold the mirror for him. He doesn't care which woman as long as she's nearby and good at caretaking. You married a caregiver." I married the idea that he'd stop. I didn't respond for a while because I didn't want to use an ex-wife as a weapon. But it snapped the picture into focus. Ethan was building the same structure, and my wife was furnishing it. The thing about live photos is that they're little time capsules. A few seconds of motion and sound. Maya has a shared album with my family. The other night a photo of a latte appeared with a caption that said, "Fuel." In the half-second of audio, I heard Ethan say, "This place is better than the one by your gym." In the reflection on the espresso machine, I saw his stupid red beanie. Maybe that's nothing. Or maybe that's the universe saying, stop hoping people will confess. They won't. I kept asking myself, am I being petty to notice? Am I making a collage from normal human behavior? And then the rewards portal showed a companion booking at a boutique hotel near a music venue Ethan likes. The points were mine. We share an account. The initials next to companion matched his. I asked Maya how the girls' night went. She said, "We ended up staying in and watching movies." I asked which one. She said, "You wouldn't like it. I don't want a blowout. I want gravity. I want a room to tilt toward truth, not toward whoever can cry the most on command." So here's what I'm planning, and why I'm here. My mom's birthday is coming up, a dinner, small family. I intend to bring a slim folder, no passwords, no invasive screenshots, just the minimum that answers, "Why are you making this up?" A few printed pages. A carrier call log, redacted bill page showing repeated nightly calls between Maya and Ethan in the same windows, months after his divorce stabilized. Find my snapshot. A simple chart of location unavailable windows that overlap with those calls. No exact times. Just nights, recurring. A shared album live photo, caption only. A still of the latte with the note fuel. And a printed reflection crop showing the apartment hallway art I recognize from Ethan's place. A hotel rewards. A print of the booking with a line drawn under companion A, where the point source is my profile. A ring/doorbell log. Arrived home entries on weekends I was away that overlap with Ethan's sudden, off-the-grid toggles. Again, no exact times. The pattern. A P2P transfers. Tiny transfers from Maya to Ethan with notes like, tickets, lessons, snacks, clustered with those same windows. I will say the sentence I've been practicing. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here to stop being gaslit. If there's an explanation that fits inside respect, give it to me now. Otherwise, I'm stepping back from both this marriage and this family until I can breathe. Maya will say I should have done this privately. I tried privately. Privately became you're paranoid. Ethan will say nothing that sounds like guilt and everything that sounds like charisma. Lydia will say not tonight. That's the point. It is always not tonight in this family. If I don't put a stake in the ground keeps moving. I'm not going to scream. I'm not naming a hotel or a street. I'm not dropping hours or dates. I'll keep it as clean as a lab report. I'll say what I'm doing next. Moving into a short-term place for a while, separating finances completely, pursuing counseling, and then deciding whether to file, not asking for legal advice. I'll also say I won't attend family events where I'm expected to smile beside the two people who treated me like a bridge. So, AITA for planning to expose my wife's affair with my brother at a family dinner, with only minimal, factual pages. After months of being told I'm imagining things and that we'll talk later, I stopped trying to win conversations and started acting like my own historian. Feelings in one tab, facts in another. The more I separated them, the less my stomach argued with my eyes. I pulled our phone bill first. I wasn't looking for scandal. I was looking for rhythm. Carrier call log. Long calls between Maya and Ethan, clustered at night windows, repeating across weeks. Nothing wrong with family talking until the curve on the graph looks like a second relationship. Steady, private, prioritized over the person on the couch. Then I mapped those clusters against device location. Find my snapshot. Maya's location goes dark in recurring evening blocks and returns near our street after. Ethan's share with me ended after his divorce. Understandable. But when he kept Maya's and she kept toggling hers, it started to feel like choreography. I didn't list hours. I drew columns labeled evenings and checked boxes. The page filled itself. I went through the shared family album, which we keep mostly for cousins and pets. A new live photo of a latte landed. Shared album live photo. The half-breath of audio caught Ethan saying, "This place is better than the one by your gym." In the reflection, imperfect but recognizable, you can see his apartment's hallway art. A geometric print I helped him hang. If you think I'm CSIING a coffee, you're not wrong. I'm also a husband whose wife tells him she's solo on self-care nights. Because I hate jumping to ugly conclusions, I looked for benign explanations. Maybe Maya was helping Ethan book travel to see a show. Then I checked the points portal I manage. Hotel/airline rewards. My points used for a weekend at a boutique hotel near Ethan's favorite venue. Companion field showing his initials. I'm not mad about the points. I'm mad about the story I was fed that night. Girls' night in. If the truth can't stand daylight, it isn't truth. It's strategy. I cross-checked our doorbell entries. Ring/doorbell log. Maya home late on weekends I was away. Ethan's phone, when it's still shared, used to go unavailable in the same block. I didn't print timestamps. Just dates with overlapping shading. It's less dramatic. It's harder to argue with. Money leaves traces even when the amounts are small. P2P transfers. Little payments from Maya to Ethan with soft labels. Tickets, lessons, snacks. On their own, they're nothing. In context, they're either inside jokes with a till or receipts for moments I was asked to ignore. Finally, my car app. Car telematics. When Maya had my car for errands, the most frequent errand pinned near Ethan's building. Again, no hours, just repeat routes highlighted like veins on a map. I did try to talk again before turning this into a folder. I told Maya I'm struggling to feel married to her when so much of her tenderness is routed through Ethan. She went quiet for a beat and then made it about tone. "You always need proof," she said. "You don't trust your heart." That's an easy jab when your heart is in a place you don't want to name. Nora, Ethan's ex, met me for coffee after I asked if we could compare notes. She doesn't want revenge. She wants peace. She slid her phone across the table. Parallel thread. Nora, late night you get me? Can't sleep. Need to hear your voice messages from Ethan across the months their marriage was fading. The sentences were older twins of the ones lighting up Maya's phone now. "He's not a mastermind," she said. "He's a man who needs generosity to hide in. You married a generous woman." I stared at the foam until it looked like a map. Lydia, our mother, still pitches family unity like a coupon. When I told her I was stepping back if the gaslighting didn't stop, she said I was performing. I asked her what performance she calls. I'm not comfortable with my wife wearing my brother's hoodie and disappearing for gym nights that match his favorite venue. She said, "You always were dramatic." The word dramatic is how my family tries to erase the boring print on paper. So I tightened the practical screws. I moved most joint spending to a shared but separate budget tool where every purchase needs a name. Not as a trap, as a mirror. I booked a short-term sublet for a few weeks beginning right after the dinner, deposit paid, key code waiting. I started seeing a therapist so my backbone doesn't mistake crisis for identity. I told Maya I'd love joint counseling. She said, "Not until you stop threatening to leave." I said, "I'm promising to leave if truth keeps losing." I also ran a tiny experiment with honesty. I told Maya, one evening, "I'm taking the car to help a friend move," and waited. She said, "Okay," and flipped her phone face down. Later that night, Ethan texted me a question he has never asked in his life. "You good, man?" Maybe it was kindness. Maybe it was a perimeter check. Either way, I screen capped the weirdness and filed it under behavior when watched. In case anyone wants to know why do it privately wasn't enough. I tried privately. Privately became "you're jealous," and after things settled down for Ethan. Everything in this family is always after. After the divorce. After the new job. After the birthday. After the holidays. If I wait for the calendar to approve my boundaries, I'll die polite. What I won't do at the dinner. I won't read out loud their messages, or name hotels or drop clocks. I won't perform rage. I'll put down 4 pages, calmly, and say, "I've been told for months that I'm imagining this. Here's the pattern that says I'm not. If there's a respectful explanation, I'll hear it. If not, I'm stepping back. No fights, just choices. If they try the 'not tonight' script, I'll say, 'Every night so far has been not tonight. I'm choosing this one.' If they call it humiliation, I'll say, 'Humiliation is being told your home is secure while the locks are swapped during errands.' If they ask for privacy, I'll say, 'Privacy is what I gave you while you asked me not to notice.' What I'm bracing for. Maya will cry. Ethan will deflect. Lydia will manage. My job is to keep the floor flat. I'm not asking for a confession. I'm offering a door, truth or distance. If they choose distance, I have a bed in a place with quiet walls and a budget with my name on it. If they choose truth, then we start the unglamorous work of disentangling, with counselors and forms, not cliffhangers. And because someone will ask, "Yes, I got tested. Yes, I'm fine. Yes, I'm documenting the normal way you document when your life starts to feel like a gas leak, carefully, without sparks." The part that hurts most isn't the romance. It's the erasure. Being asked to swallow what I can see so someone else can keep their story tidy. My folder is messy, but it's honest. My mother likes tablecloths you have to iron. The dining room smelled like roast and candles and a lifetime of "not tonight." Ethan arrived first, louder than the room needed, dropping a bakery box on the buffet. Maya came with him from the parking lot, which landed in my stomach like a piano note. She said the ride was convenient. That parking is tight. Lydia smiled with watery pride. My folder sat in my bag like a seatbelt. We did the small talk dance. Ethan told a story about a coworker who bought a kayak to fix his marriage. Maya laughed in the register she keeps for him. Lydia asked if I was still working too much, the way people ask if you're still being yourself. I poured water, not wine, on purpose. When the plates were down and the candles had burned low enough that the room felt honest, I said, "I need 5 minutes before cake." Lydia flinched like I'd knocked a picture off the wall. "Honey, tonight is small and family," I said. "That's why I picked it." I put the folder on the table and slid out 4 pages. No dates, no hours, just the shapes that refused to be random. Page 1. Carrier call log. Pattern view, a simple chart with shaded evening blocks labeled M left right arrow E. Page 2. Find my snapshot. Recurring columns of nights with checkmarks where location sharing went dark. Page 3. Shared album live photo, crop. A latte still with a reflection slice. A single caption, fuel. Page 4. Hotel rewards, companion. A booking print with a line under companion E. And a small note. Point source. My profile. Bonus strip. Ring/doorbell overlap. My arrived home entries marked on the same nights Ethan's historically went unavailable. I said, "I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here to stop being told I'm imagining things." Maya didn't look at the pages. "You're violating my privacy," she said. "I used our phone bill, my rewards account, the shared family album, and the doorbell we both installed," I said. "There are no messages here. No passwords. These are my records and our records." Ethan reached for page 4. That hotel was for my friend's birthday, he said. Maya just helped me book it with your points because she understands that website better. Then why did she tell me she had a girls' night in? I asked. Maya's hands were flat on the table. Because you make everything an interrogation, she said. You collect things and shove them in my face. I pointed at the pages, soft. These collected themselves. I asked you nicely. You said I was paranoid. Lydia tried the script. Sweetheart, not tonight, she said. This is my birthday. It is, I said, and slid a small gift bag toward her. I thought hard about when to do this. Every week is someone's something. I'm tired of my marriage being the thing that can wait. Ethan did the earnest lean he's perfected. Look, man. I leaned on Maya when I was at my worst. If that looks like a lot, I'm sorry, but you're painting it like a crime. I'm painting it like a pattern, I said. If there's an explanation that fits inside respect, give it to me now. Maya's eyes were glassy with anger more than tears. You want me to admit to a checklist? I won't. I was being there for your brother. We're family. Being there for him cost being here with me, I said. That's the part one can't keep pretending is charity. She picked up page 3 like it might stain her fingers. You zoomed a reflection? She said, almost laughing. It's the shared album, I said. It's things you posted yourself. I am not a hacker. I am a husband who learned to look at what's in front of him. Lydia tried new words for an old defense. This could all be a misunderstanding, she said. We can sort it out after this week. There's no reason to blow up the night. I'm not blowing up the night, I said. I'm stating what happens next. I'm moving to a short-term place for a while. I've separated our spending. I'll go to counseling. I'll talk about anything. But I won't share a home with 2 people who call me crazy while they share the pieces of a life I'm supposed to hold together. Ethan sat back and went clinical. So what do you want, exactly? A confession? The word you want? Because nothing happened. Here is the word I want, I said. Boundary. No more late calls. No more toggling location off to create convenient fog. No more companion trips on my accounts with stories that don't match. No more support that edits me out of my own marriage. If this is innocent, the boundary won't hurt. If it's not, the truth will be a relief. Maya said, You're controlling. I said, I'm asking for our vows to mean something. Control is telling someone to ignore a chart because it ruins your mood. Lydia reached for my hand. I left mine on my lap. She said, We can go to family therapy. I said, Great, after we name what we're taking to therapy. The room did that thing where sound is air, not words. Lydia dabbed at her eyes and said, Let's have cake. I said, Have cake. Pushed in my chair. Where are you going? Maya asked. To sleep somewhere quiet, I said. The bag is in my car. The key will be in the bowl by the door. You can text me about logistics. I'm not blocking your number. I'm blocking the part of me that keeps waiting for later. Ethan stood like maybe he could intercept me with posture. We can talk, man, he said. We've been talking, I said. You've been heard. I'm going to be believed. I wished my mother happy birthday, because love and boundaries aren't enemies, and walked out with less shaking than I expected. In the driveway, the air had that cool snap that feels like being let out of a too-warm room. My phone lit up, 3 messages from Maya, Come back. Don't do this. We can talk after. 1 from Lydia, Please don't make decisions when you're upset. 1 from Ethan, Call me. I put the phone in the glove box and drove to a place with a bed and a door I could close. That night, I disabled family sharing on photos, turned off Find My Connections, and changed my emergency contact. I moved our joint autopays to a holding list and set up 2 separate spreadsheets, hers to see, mine to control, so any future story includes numbers with names. I emailed a counselor 2 blocks from the sublet and wrote 1 sentence I've been afraid to. If this is an ending, help me end well. By morning, Lydia had posted a vague family message about remembering what matters. Nora, my brother's ex, texted, Thinking of you. Proud you chose daylight. I didn't respond to either. I sent Maya a short message. I will be back with boxes during the weekend. You can be present or not. Nothing will be thrown away. I will not discuss blame by text. She replied with a paragraph about betrayal that used the word public. I sent one more line. For pages at a table are not public. But I won't live private lies. If you're looking for fireworks, they weren't there. It was a candlelit room, a folder, a calm voice, and a door closing without theatrics. Shame only survives in the dark. I brought a lamp. Now I'm sleeping. The first night in the sublet, I learned what my house had taught my nervous system. Constant monitoring can feel like love if you squint. The silence was a sound I hadn't heard in months. I sat on the edge of a rented bed and realized the version of me who used to calibrate a room for the needs of two other people was already less loud. Maya sent an essay of a text in the gray hour before morning. It cycled through you humiliated me, you're controlling, you made me feel unsafe, and I can explain. I replied with 3 sentences I'd written in my notebook before the dinner. In case my courage leaked out. I won't fight by phone. I'll come on the weekend to pack. I'll talk in counseling if we're naming what happened. She fired back, what happened is you overreacted. Then, I never slept with him. The first line was the thesis of the last months. The second line was a sentence designed to make me argue. I didn't. I put the phone on the dresser and wrote not arguing isn't silence. It's choosing my lungs. Ethan tried brotherly outreach. He stopped by the sublet without asking. The downside of a lifetime of open doors. I didn't buzz him in. Over the intercom he said, "Dude, you took a hostage situation to mom's dinner." I said, "I took for pages." He said, "You love evidence because you don't know how to love people." I said, "You love oxygen someone else paid for." He laughed in that way he does when he thinks he can charm a border agent. I didn't let him up. Lydia sent flowers. The card said, "Let's remember birthdays are for joy." I put the vase on the counter and remembered that adults can love their mothers and still say no. When she called, I answered. She tried to sump the conversation with syrup. I stopped her before the part where she says family is everything. "Mom," I said. "Family can be everything when it's not being used as a blanket to smother actual people." She cried a little, then asked if I'd consider a reset dinner without paperwork. I said I'd consider it after a counselor writes we named the problem at the top of a page. The logistics were as uncinematic as everything else. I came on a weekend with boxes. Maya stayed, which surprised me and didn't. She was dressed like a story she wanted me to buy. We labeled things like accountants. The couch. Shared. The books. Divided by who underlined what. The kitchen. Measured out like inventory. My hands know our mugs in the dark. They still put them in bubble wrap like strangers. We didn't speak much. When we did, it sounded like administration. There were flare-ups. She said, "You should have told me you were unhappy." I said, "I did," in full sentences you called paranoia. She said, "It wasn't an affair." I said, "It was an intimacy that didn't include me, and a story that asked me to play dumb." She said, "You just want a confession." I said, "I want a reality I can live inside." I left her a printed page on the counter with 3 numbers. The short-term sublet, my counselor, and my work cell. Underneath, a line. "If you want to try reconciliation, the minimum set is full transparency with a third party, no contact with Ethan beyond family events, and only with me present, and explicit agreement that you and I decide our marriage without intermediaries." It wasn't a contract. It was a bandage sized to a wound. She texted later that it felt punitive. I wrote, "Boundaries feel punitive when you're used to no fences." I filed some paperwork, not a play-by-play, just the unglamorous steps you do when your life splits like a branch. Change address, update payroll, rotate passwords, pull your name off accounts you no longer control. Bank statement, auto-pay migration. Utilities moved to separate cards. Shared subscriptions paused or mirrored. Find My off. I ended all location sharing, not as a power move, as a ceasefire. Counseling started. The first session was all shock and nouns. The second session, I told the counselor how my family uses later like a spell. Later we'll talk, later we'll fix it, later we'll look at the bill. Later is a wall, she said. Boundaries have doors. She asked me to draw the door I was offering. I wrote 3 words. Name, stop, rebuild. Name what it is, stop the pattern, rebuild if we both still want to after the first 2 are true. She asked what I do if only name happens. I said, then I end without a speech. Nora and I traded 2 messages, both gentle. She said she once mistook proximity for promise, that she learned the difference the hard way. I thanked her for not using my anger as a ladder for hers. She wrote back, anger gets you to the door. Paperwork gets you through it. Maya agreed to 1 counseling session. She came with a list of ways I've failed at being easy. The counselor asked if she could start with what she had done. Maya said, I shouldn't have kept things from him. The counselor asked, which things? Maya looked at me like I was supposed to rescue her from specificity. I said nothing. After a long pause, she said, how much time do we have? The counselor said, enough to start. That session gave me a gift I didn't expect. A measure of whether the door was going to open. Cracked. It didn't swing. Ethan, predictably, found a softer audience. Lydia posted a family group message about the dangers of audits in relationships, which was a sentence only my family could write. My dad, who often opts out by silence, called and asked if I was okay. I told him I was tired. He said, you were always the one who did the dishes while everyone talked. It was the closest thing to a vote I've ever gotten from him. I kept a few little evidence blocks for myself, not to show anyone but to keep my brain honest. A message excerpt from Maya. I never slept with him. That sentence did a lot of work for very little. It told me she thought the absence of a physical act erased the presence of a replacement. A phone usage graph. My usage down after moving out. My sleep improved in weeks. The numbers felt like breath. A budget sheet. Food spend normalized. Miscellaneous category shrank. The crisis line on my credit card graph stopped spiking. 2 weeks into the sublet, I walked into a living room that didn't need me to referee, and I cried the kind you do when there's no audience to perform for. It was not about losing her. It was about finding my edges where I'd sanded them down. Then came the practical crossroads, try to rebuild or file. The counselor said, pick one road for long enough to see if it's a road. I picked rebuild attempt with conditions. I sent Maya a clear note. If we try, this is the shape. Joint sessions weekly for a season. Full transparency for that season. Devices/accounts in the room with the counselor, not at home. No calls/texts with Ethan except in group family threads I'm on. No location toggles. No girls' nights that come with a companion booking. New rituals that belong only to us. Small, boring, daily. If any of this feels like handcuffs, we shouldn't try. She said the rules felt infantilizing. I said rules are what adults choose when they want to keep something. She asked if I had rules too. I wrote mine. No folders unless invited. Say things when they're small instead of collecting. Don't turn fear into a spreadsheet. We agreed to try for a month. It lasted half of that. She kept most of the behavior inside the lines, but the resentment leaked through the tape. She said, you're making me prove I'm innocent. I said, I'm asking you to stop acting like secrets are air. She said, you want me to cut your brother off. I said, I want you to stop holding his hand while telling me I'm imagining it. She said, this would be easier if you were less rigid. I said, this would be unnecessary if you were less elastic with the truth. The end wasn't a fight. It was a Thursday with a quiet kitchen. She said, I can't live audit it. I said, I can't live erased. We both sat with that for a long time. Then we divided the last drawer. She took the golden ladle his mother gave us. I let it go. I called my attorney, not to unleash war, just to start the administration of an ending. I won't spell out every step. That's not why I'm here. I'll say that it was slower and kinder than TV. We put the house decision on a timeline. We put joint debts on a list. We agreed to a split that didn't make either of us heroes or villains. I asked for one line in the paperwork that mattered to me more than the couch. A statement that neither party would host or attend family events where both of us would be present without prior consent during a transition period. If the family wanted holidays of later, they could have them without me. Lydia called the clause dramatic. I told her drama is showing up to carve a turkey between the two people who rewrote my marriage and asking me to bring pie. She said, "We can work this out." I said, "We did, on paper." Ethan's final attempt at recentering himself was as predictable as sunrise. He sent a text that said, "I didn't mean to blow up your life." I replied with, "I'll take blow up over slowly hollow out." He reacted with a thumbs up, the most honest thing he sent me in months. I wish I could tell you there was a cinematic apology. The truth is more human. A few soft admissions from Maya in counseling. She liked who she felt like when she was saving Ethan. A limp "I'm sorry you were hurt" from Lydia. Silence from Ethan that said everything. The paperwork got filed. The rings went in separate boxes. The house, the mugs, the routines, all of it learned new names. And me? I learned to make dinner for one without narrating loneliness as failure. I learned to run again, not to improve a time but to teach my body what effort without audience feels like. I learned that the smell of laundry can be a boundary when it used to be a trigger. I went to a trivia night with a friend and didn't check my phone. I bought a plant and kept it alive. There are still bad days. I still have the reflex to screenshot my reality when I feel it slipping. The counselor calls it evidence as armor. We're working on asking before archiving. On those days, I open the evidence index and look at the first note I wrote to myself. Make a life you don't need proof for. Then I close the folder and call a friend. A few months into this new geography, I met Nora for coffee in a spot that felt neutral. We didn't trade horror stories. We traded recipes and talked about how love can turn caregivers into furniture if you don't dust. She said, "You don't have to forgive to stop carrying." I said, "I believe in consequences more than closure." We laughed like people who know the difference. Will I be in the same room as Ethan again? Yes, funerals probably. Will I sit near him at birthdays? Not for a while. Will I be warm to Lydia? Yes, with a thermostat I control. If you need the headline, we're divorcing. Not because one sentence proved guilt in a way a stranger on the internet would vote on, but because my marriage became a story I wasn't allowed to read out loud. I offered a door. We didn't walk through it together. I'm not posting this for a verdict anymore. I'm posting it because the quiet after choosing yourself is so quiet you might think you did it wrong. You didn't. The quiet is the sound of your life with the static turned down. It's the floor being flat again. Here are the last little blocks, for the part of me that won't stop documenting even in peace. A counselor note, paraphrase. Grief is an honest payment for a bill you didn't rack up alone. A separation binder, checklist. Things we divided, things we deleted, things we kept. A personal rituals, Sunday pancakes for one, phone on the bookshelf during dinner, walk the long block, not the short one. Am I the asshole for taking 4 pages to a family table and then building a life on a smaller table for one? Maybe to people who think harmony is more important than truth. To me, I'm just the guy who finally stopped accepting later as a plan.